Welcome to my channel where horror and sci-fi collide, and where every story holds a deeper meaning waiting for you to uncover. Here we explore the eerie and the unsettling, weaving tales that will chill your bones and linger in your mind long after the screen goes dark. If you're drawn to the macabre, the supernatural and the terrifying unknown, you're in the right place. Prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of darkness. Make no mistake, it will haunt you long after the final word is spoken. Dim the lights and let the nightmare unfold. Her name was not originally Abbie, and she could no longer remember her human name. All she could remember was a man Abbie called father, and that she had once been a human child. When Abbie fell, she felt instant despair and lost all hope. Her soul found fear she had never known until that moment when she slipped through the darkness and fell. Abbie didn't even know those emotions until she found herself on the other side of an ancient mirror that had appeared in the room's corner. The attic was her unofficial playroom, reading and playing pretend with the things left in the old, dusty room at the top of the old New England home. When she found the old book in her father's study, she snuck it up to her play area. Abbie learned to read almost as soon as she could talk, and maybe even before. The book fascinated her. It was large, 2 adult hands wide and 5 adult hands in length. If Abbie had to guess, it was a solid 4 grown-up fingers, thick and bound in a black-dyed leather. The texture of the binding was like high-quality calf leather, smooth, soft and relatively supple. The pores of the leather were finer and delicate in structure than other leathers Abbie had felt. Reading was second nature to her, like walking or riding a bike. Thumbing through the ancient tome covered in strange geometrical symbols and stopping on a random page filled with what looked like an illustration of an intricate spider's web, with points all randomly numbered throughout the web. She read the unknown words on the opposing page of the web slowly and out loud, sounding out the peculiar words one by one until she had recited the entire page. When she was done, she noticed a picture-framed mirror in the attic's corner. The little girl had not seen it before when she had played here. The mirror called to Abbie's mind with a whisper. She stood up, dropped the book to the floor, and walked to the mirror. Once she was facing it, the mirror seemed to shimmer and suddenly pulled her into it, and she fell down into an empty black void. The wind raced through her hair as she screamed until her throat went raw and she lost her voice. She was falling with such speed that the wind burned her skin, slowly stripping any exposed skin down to the muscle and bone, falling for what seemed an eternity with never-ending pain. She finally slammed with the force of a meteor into a surface covered in what could only be described as shells and husks of insects, breaking her body and soul completely, with an eternity of pain always in the forefront of her consciousness. The surface she had slammed into was crawling with insectoid-like creatures that devoured her, crawling in and out of orifices and into her insides, eating and devouring her flesh and the purity of her soul. Still, in this place, she could not die. Abbie would heal just enough to keep the insects full of her meat. She now resembled a lump of discarded flesh, like a butcher's scraps left to rot in a forgotten hole. However, the pain was still there in the front of her mind. This cycle of decay and pain went on for what seemed to Abbie as eternity in that black hole in hell. Abbie was no longer a child when her mind finally returned. Better said, she gained control over it through the never-ending searing pain that had been her existence. She has a brief memory of her life before this current existence as a rotting, organic, dead thing in the bottom of a hole. Abbie became conscious slowly, fueled with pure hate for everything and anything that had ever existed. She wanted everything to experience her pain and hatred. The creature that had once been a little girl commanded what they left of her body to rebuild itself. Her tongue became like a whip that she could control and used to kill and drag unsuspecting creatures to her. She would devour them, growing faster and faster with every kill and feast of rotting flesh. Abbie was becoming an unholy killer, the monster in the black void of this hell, hunting and consuming anything and everything. There was nothing to mark the passage of time. There was no need. Time's only purpose here was to rot and decay. The only thing that mattered to Abbie was the pain and hate she had spread in her existence. Eventually she had legs and arms with hands and claws, could walk semi-upright, and was growing bat-like wings. She became the dominant predator in her hole in hell. Abbie was a creature that existed to bring nothing but pain. It was the only cure for her own pain and misery. Abbie had become something primal and bestial. She was now a foul, diseased, bloodthirsty monster that lived to destroy. Soon she had no more room to grow within the hellhole. She needed to get out. Abbie was growing stronger and more vicious. The wings that had sprouted on her back were now functioning wings. The bat-like wings were growing stronger than she could fly higher and higher in the hole, feeding off other creatures, also attempting to escape. She was rising from her own filth and pain. Abbie flew upwards and upwards, feeding and inflicting pain where and whenever the opportunity presented itself. Eventually, Abbie flew into a vast void, where she could hear snarling and growling with the sounds of violence and infinite chaos. With her eyes that could pierce through the never-ending darkness, she saw in the distance massive Titan-sized demons engaging in orgiastic violence between each other. Both had armies of smaller demonic creatures, battling in an eternal struggle of inflicting unregulated pain on each other. She could smell the evil that hung heavy in the air with the stench of filth, bringing her the closest to what they could define as pleasure in this land of demons and pure evil. Abbie wanted to swoop down upon the battle and inflict as much damage as possible on the smaller creatures. The creature that had once been a little girl wanted to create evil and watch it grow and spread with her vision of this place. She wanted to be the dominant evil in this hell. She could feel her body healing and strengthening with every bite of decaying meat. Abbie had not eaten this well in centuries. More minor demons followed her for scraps. She was selfish as expected in this place and often gained entertainment by making them fight in pain over her scraps. Abbie would also torture the smaller demons. She would lure them close with the prospect of being fed and then impale them, fillet them and devour them. More centuries passed and Abbie climbed higher and higher in the demonic hierarchy. She was now the size of the Titan demons first seen when she rose above her hellish hole. Countless hordes now served her. She answered only to the entity with no name. The Titan demons had noticed Abbie's presence and growing dominance in this realm of pure evil. They gathered forces around her, trying to prevent her ascendancy. She devoured and tortured many that opposed her, and then turned her attention to the armies of smaller demons that may resist her in the future. Abbie devoured and tortured them. She had gained the ear of the entity with no name, and he was pleased with this titan of a demon who had come to him as an innocent child. The entity had heard her cursed prayer in the other world, the world that had banished and cursed him for an eternity. He had stolen this dimension, devoured it, and made it the embodiment of pure evil fed by greed, selfishness and pain. The creature he took this realm from had been turned into a filthy, grub-like thing because it had shown weakness and now was forced to exist in the filth of this hell. Abbie had found a disgusting little creature. She impaled it and pinned the disgusting little thing to the ground. The grubby-looking, pus-filled thing howled and screamed as she slowly tortured it. She found it feeding in her filth, and she was now enjoying its pain. She decided she would feed its soul to some of her underlings, whom she would later devour herself. Abbie divided the worm into 4 pieces, with the soul of the worm screaming, which was pure pleasure in Abbie's ears. She pinned the 4 pieces separately and stepped away. Soon 4 of her underling demons started pacing cautiously around the pinned food. Then they pounced on a separate section each, devouring the pieces with gruesome viciousness. Before the 4 underlings realized what was happening, Abbie sprung her trap and speared her 4 underlings with her massive, barbed whip-like tongue, instantly pulling them all into her giant mouth, filled with infinite rows of razor-like teeth. Feeling satisfied, she had intrusive thoughts that did not belong to her. They whispered the name Hanbi, Hanbi, Hanbi. Abbie had been summoned to the entity with no name. The fullness of her meal was wearing off, and it would soon be time to feed again. Before she could feed, she would need to attend to her master. Abbie appeared to her master, always showing the fear he deserved. The no-name entity said, "I want to give you your own realm. You have served me well." She had not spoken since being a human child. Abbie did not know how to respond. All she could think to say was the only word that she knew, Hanbi. The entity with no name shot toward Abbie at a speed that instantly made him appear before her. He pinned her wings to a rock wall that suddenly appeared behind her. He then flayed her down to the center of her demonic soul. She appeared as the little girl she had once been, nevertheless, with all her demonic features, razor-like teeth, tongue, pain and hunger. Then and only then, he roared at her. "Where did you learn that name?" He didn't care. She couldn't be allowed to repeat it. He must deal with her now. A massive dark tentacle appeared out of the void and curled around the small demonic child that was now Abbie. She screamed in fear as she sensed her eternal pain taking hold of her. The demon named Hanbi commanded the dark tentacle to cast her into the deepest hole in this realm of pure evil. Abbie was falling again and screaming in pain. She did not know why the entity with no name had punished her like this. As she fell, a light opened in front of her. It shimmered, and a 4-armed creature that reminded her of a human appeared, with only its upper body visible from the shimmering light. "Here, grab my hand, hurry, we have little time," the creature said as it reached out 2 of his hands. Abbie reached out, took the hand of the creature, and was pulled through the shimmering window of light.